Hope so.
You know.
All right.
I think I
Yeah,
know.
we're live, right? All right, cool. All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to a special 10 a.m. Central breakdown. We're doing it a little early today. We have Keith King joining us here from the National Veterans Business Development Council. So the description here is like what does it mean to be veteran, like a certified veteran-owned business? What does that mean? Who qualifies? What do you get? You know, what is the value in doing that? Something that you've dedicated years to. So I think we should just dive right into this. And what is the National Veterans Business Development Council?
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I appreciate it. Appreciate being here and seeing you again. Actually, what it breaks down to is first and foremost establishing the fact that you are a veteran. Mm-hmm. And that may seem obvious. It's not. The terms in the sense of the length of time that you've served, active duty service, where you served, what you served, mm-hmm. and many of these things all in the sense of determining what is a veteran is where we always start. Mm-hmm. And what we make sure is that you are in fact a veteran according to federal law.
Okay.
All right, so that's the first place we start. Second to that, the easiest way to look at this in the sense of the veteran business and the actual certification of your business. What I'm looking for, what we're looking for. Do you own a minimum of 51%? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then it's what we call operational control and authority. And I can tell you, we turn down a lot of businesses over the authority. Here's the deal. You actually got to show up and run the company. Mm-hmm. Okay? You have to have the authority to hire and fire people, write checks. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you the term that we use, which is called rent a vet. Mm-hmm. We turn down people all the time because, again, one of the things that we've learned, and again, use whatever language you want, but fraud, fakes, fronts, mm-hmm. all of those terms are the same as rent a vet. Mm-hmm. But here's the bottom line. You have people who put up money. You have people who have said, oh, well, you're a veteran. Let me make you the president. Mm-hmm. But they control the company in the backside. Mm-hmm. Now, people being the veterans and the veteran business owners get a little touchy sometimes when we say, look, I need to see your IRS records, I need to see your personal information, I need to see a lot of documents. But the point is very simple. I can prove that you actually are in charge and running the company by the documents that you provide us. Sure. If you don't provide it, I can't prove it. Mm-hmm. If I can't prove it, I'm not going to certify you. Right. It's really simple. And we are finding that, unfortunately, we have a lot of people who either deliberately, chasing the money, want to basically get over in the fact that they're not really in charge. Mm-hmm. That's the number one thing that we see constantly. Mm-hmm. The other thing is frankly, and sometimes we're not sure if it's simply the confusion about what is a veteran. You talked about guard and reserve issues. Right. Those are issues that, frankly, unless you have been on active duty, right, you don't meet or in not counting training, and or you've gone on active duty and gone overseas and in a combat zone, mm-hmm. there are issues, in fact, of establishing, are you a veteran? Right. Mm-hmm. So those issues are got to be addressed up front. Right.
So Keith, how do you prepare the reservists or the National Guardsmen who just got their 20-year letter, but they've never deployed, and they want the certification, they have a business, they're generating revenue, they meet the qualifications?
And to that point too, I want to just take a quick step. So for those who don't know, yeah, if you're starting a small business, there is an opportunity for you to certify yourself as a veteran-owned business or a service-disabled veteran-owned business, and there are incentives for federal contracts and things like that. Is this accurate? That like being a certified veteran-owned business, there are opportunities for veterans that are not necessarily open to just civilians. Is that like how? What is?
Yeah. Let me come back to you and answer your question. What has just recently happened is the law was changed that says if you were in the Guard or Reserve and you retired after 20 years of honorable service. Mm-hmm. the government will now recognize you as a veteran. That is new. That was never the case. I had a guy who retired out of 32 years and he wasn't a veteran. But that law has changed. So now, if you have your retirement letter after 20 years, we will then consider you a veteran and process you the same way. Now, to go back to your issue. Yes, we created the National Veteran Business Development Council, the NVBDC, was because of the corporations, their willingness to accept veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses as a entity, as a class, to work within what they call their supplier diversity area.
Right.
The minority-owned businesses have had their certification process.
There's a bunch of people.
I saw. Certification process now for almost 45 years. The women have been certifying women-owned businesses for 25 years. Okay, those two, the women and minorities, those have been the basic two entities identification processes within what is called supplier diversity. We now have veterans. Now, to answer your question about the federal government, quick history. What I call my friends who were involved in writing the law back in 1990, well, we wrote it in 97, got it passed in 1999, which is the law 10650, which is the law that established veterans and service-disabled veterans as entities to have a preference in federal contracting. So that law was passed in 1999. Now, what that law did is provided veteran-owned and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses an opportunity to do business with the federal government and had certain preferences given to them. Between 1999 and 2008, there was, again, so much fraud that the government came back and said to the VA, in essence, you have to create a program that, in essence, verifies that these people truly are veterans. We know it as the CVE, okay? The CVE is...
Can you just say what that acronym is right there for the...
Well, it used to be the Center for Veteran Evaluation.
Okay.
And now it's this, I don't know, it's gone through about 4 or 5 different names. So it's a Center for Verification and Enterprise, or whatever it is today. Doesn't matter, it's the same thing, unfortunately.
And that one's through the VA?
That's the issue, and I think it's a clarification that needs to be made. First off, that verification, and I want to be clear about this, is more in semantics. There's a difference between a verification and a certification. The VA's never claimed to do a certification ever. They call it a verification, and there's a reason for that. Now, having said that, it is only applicable to the VA. So unless you intended to do business with the VA, there was little to no incentive to go through that process to become verified by the VA. But if you were doing business with the VA, or you wanted to, then I encourage people to get that certification or verification. My company is literally one of the first 20 or 25 companies ever verified by the VA. In 2008, I'm one of the first 20 or 25 ever. So I know this process intimately. Excuse me. But again, being verified in 2008, 10, 12, and 14, I also spent 14 years of doing federal contracting with my company. What happened is I had just finished a rather large national contract. And it really angered me that I couldn't get corporations to talk to me, let alone hire me. And this whole idea that it was a small company or that I couldn't do the work because I wasn't big enough or I couldn't scale up were all, to me, just excuses.
Yeah.
Okay. But it wasn't until some of the corporations, what I call, were kind enough to say, here, sit down, I want to explain this to you. What they explained was is they were not going to risk their names, their reputations, their company's names by hiring people that may or may not, one, be a veteran, or secondly, control. Because here's what they knew. The women and the minorities have been through this all these years. You know, the cliche was is she was a housewife one day, next day she's the president of the company, she doesn't even know where the office is. The minority is a janitor one day, next day he's the president of the company.
So, well, quick context.
Yeah.
WeBank does the Women Business International Certification Center, and so
Yes.
what happens is when the women send in their, just to give you context, when they send in their applications, someone from the certification team actually goes out and like trust but verify. So I trust that you did this paperwork, but I'm going to verify that everything on this paperwork is actually you, that you can answer these questions. And so that's what he's saying when the housewife is suddenly put out as a front runner. And it's
Gotcha.
like, wait a second.
Yeah, it's called on-site assessment.
Yeah.
We do that as well. The thing that happened with us in being, again, the NVBDC, is once the corporations laid it out, I said, okay, so what does that mean? You're not going to hire me until I get certified, and there is no certification for veterans that you accept because most corporations didn't accept the VA. Doesn't meet their corporate standards. There was all these issues, you know. And I said, well, go build it.
So you ran with that.
No. You know, when you were a kid and everybody was standing in line to ask for volunteers and everybody stepped back but you, I kind of felt like I was the only guy still standing. I was the only one dumb enough to step back, get out of the way.
Yeah.
You know, so I went around talking to my so-called friends and saying, hey, you guys got to go do this. And they kept saying, no, you do it and we'll help you. So that's why I'm sitting here 5 years later. But the fact of the matter is that WeBank in particular, and the national minority organizations, my corporations, I shouldn't say my, I should say the corporations, asked them to help me
Okay.
and become my mentors, my trainers, not mine, ours. My vice president is retired Brigadier General Dick Miller. He commanded our troops in Afghanistan. I'm a Vietnam vet, I'm an in-country combat vet. Some of my other officers as well, Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam, in between Gulf, Persian Gulf. We have a full array of wars. Join me in the sense of we took the entire year of 2013 off. I basically shut my company down. And the women and the minorities became our mentors. I joke about they took pity on us and said, yeah, come here, we'll teach you. And they did. And we learned the on-site, we learned all the processes, we learned all the procedures, we actually learned what it is to actually meet those qualifications of certification, and the issues we were talking about of control and authority.
Right. So can you explain supplier diversity for anybody out there who doesn't understand?
Just pretend I've never heard of this.
Well, no, I'm glad you brought it up, you know.
Because that's where you are, and so
Yeah.
with those channels, I think it's
Yeah.
important that our viewers and those interested participants understand what supplier diversity is.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because actually that was the worst advice I had gotten from a fellow veteran, frankly, who told me to avoid supplier diversity and go directly to purchasing. That really actually hurt us. It wasn't until somebody actually grabbed me and set me down and said, let me explain to you what you're doing and why you're ticking off a whole lot of people. Here, if you look in the corporate world, in the sense of the structure, if you look at purchasing as the collective body that buys all of their products and all of their services, okay? If you look under purchasing or in purchasing, there is usually a group inside that called the supplier diversity unit or supplier diversity professionals or supplier diversity unit, whatever department, you know. Now, what they are responsible for, the supplier diversity professionals, is to take a look at literally the supply base. Who are they hiring to do business with the corporation? Corporations are very conscientious about the community that they live, work, and plants, and where they're making their living, and who their customers are.
Sure.
And one of the things that they found very early on, especially going back to one of the minorities, because they've been doing 45 years, is that they're saying, well, wait a minute, we have a lot of people in the minority, community who are buying our products, so are working for us, they're our employees, and yet we don't have any recognition of them in our suppliers. Why? And so what they did is they consciously looked for companies that were owned by minorities who could, in fact, do the work that they looked for. They understand, and to this day, they understand the innovation, they understand it's good business, they understand it's good community business, it's community service. They understood that. When the woman business idea came along, they started looking at, if you look at the automotive, it's probably the most classic example, because somebody went out and did a study and said, something like 65% of every automotive purchase made is influenced by a woman. The guy might have been buying the car, but it was the wife who said, hey, I don't like this one, I like that one, okay? And they thought, maybe we gotta start working with women. And they brought in the women businesses as well, because again, the whole idea was, not only was it good business, but they had a lot of good ideas. If you, again, stay in the automotive, you look at a lot of things we take for granted, cup holders, seats, how the seats adjust. Those were women ideas, okay?
So it completely changed the way the industry. I know. I'm like.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Listen,
You should.
I'm just throwing this out there. Like, I don't know. It's just, the education's interesting. It's like I don't know. I just.
Yeah.
Whatever. Okay.
So
I know
let me come to where we are today. Who we're talking to? We're talking about veterans.
Yes.
Let me tell you what I have. I have what I call open to buy. I have a demand. I'm hesitating to name the corporations. Let's just say they're the largest corporations in the world who came to me and said, Keith, veterans. The military veteran has the highest level of training of cybersecurity of anybody in the world. Yeah. You got any of those guys? They're out left.
Sure.
They're now running their own cybersecurity companies. I said, well, yeah, I do. Are they certified? Well, we're working on it. Well, once they're certified, I need to talk to them. Yeah, that's one example. Drones. Think about the military. We buy them, or we build them, we fly them, we control. Drone technology is applicable to the autonomous vehicle. Okay? I have like 8 major corporations who have called me and said, you got anybody that's coming out of the military who knows about the drone, the technology behind it? I want them now. Okay? Now, I know it may seem a little odd, but the energy companies said, Keith, you veterans who've been trained in nuclear power plants? So, there's all these Navy guys running around and been doing nuclear submarines. They're the only people I know. I'm sure there's some in the other branches. But well, they run companies. So I got 2 of them. Oh my God, I want them now. I got into a bidding war with these guys. Think about the technology, think about the information, think of the different things that you did as a veteran, that you have knowledge and possession of, that basically civilians don't have. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, think of that in the same sense of the application to corporations who are always looking for innovation, always looking for the next big thing. We have that demand.
Yeah.
The demand is funneled through. Are they in fact certified? Are they in fact running the company?
Right.
Okay? So the sense of the value of what we talk about in the sense of our certification. What happened in those days when we were building this. The corporations who said to us, build this and we'll help you, okay? Where in your life, how many people said, oh yeah, I'll help you?
Oh, a ton.
That's the last time you ever hear
Here
from
at
them.
Bunker Labs, no, I'm just kidding, but,
The last time you ever seen them,
Yeah.
ever hear from them, right?
Right.
I'm proud to say that the 5 corporations who said we will help you, in fact, helped us. They lent us their name, they lent their reputation, they give us money to help us, support us, to get us up and running. Because here's what happened. April 2014, we had found and worked with 3 veteran businesses that we felt met the certification standards that the women and the minorities taught us. And we presented that to a group of 14 different companies and entities, the women, the minorities, Ford, Chrysler, General Motors, Kellogg's, AT&T, the SBA, the VA, all kinds of people. The good news was, when we were done with the presentation, everyone in the room said, okay, you got it, you know what you're doing, go build it.
yeah.
So if you ask me, you know, even though I actually started doing this in late 2012, what I call knocking on doors, we launched in April of 2014. So we've been doing this for a solid 4.5, going on 5 years now. And we continue to grow. We continue to add not only the corporations, but what I love about what you guys do, okay, in the sense of helping these veterans get a company, get it established, get the networking. To me, we're almost a natural extension of you, because what happens after that company is up and running?
They may have a consideration for certification. They may need to know more about supplier diversity.
Right.
Exactly, because here's the thing,
Yeah.
you know and I know, like I mentioned to you before, you know, we started, I've owned 3 companies,
Yeah.
okay? My last one, the one that I currently have, I call it on hiatus. You know, I've been running for 20 years.
Okay.
And as you've heard, you know, 14 of those years, I was very heavy involved in federal contracting, and of course, had a lot of civilian accounts as well. But here's the facts. We know that 80-some% of every new business fails, okay? So the success rate is not very good.
No.
Now,
It is
what you now have, okay, with our certification, is you have an opportunity that simply did not exist 4 years ago when we started all this, when we started all this. Let me give you the scope. A lot of my veterans say I have to quit being quite so PC about opportunity and start talking about money, and I never mention money. But here's what we did. Because of the goodwill of the corporations, because of that supplier diversity commitment, they have committed and opened an $80 billion market to our veteran businesses.
$80 billion.
Yeah, come knock, knock, hello. Hey, it's knocking on your door. If you don't open the door, you know, to me, it's like a telephone. Telephone has no value if somebody's trying to call you and you don't pick up the phone. If you don't answer the phone, what value is a phone? See what I'm saying? Okay. We kicked open an $80 billion market. Where are you? Because here's the deal. The corporations, as you two know, tomorrow we're hosting an event here in Chicago.
At the Federal Reserve
At the
Bank?
Federal Reserve Bank.
Right down south.
That's right. We have not only federal agencies who now recognize our certification, but we have 30 corporations that will be there.
Quick question, Keith. Are these from your roundtable, these corporations?
No, you mean the $1 billion roundtable?
Yes.
No,
Can we talk about
no.
that after this?
No, the $1 billion
I want to
roundtable.
be sympathetic of time, by the
Yes,
way, as well.
understood.
But I think real quick, just one thing I think we should chat. So if I'm starting a company that is doing like some sort of construction, that wants to redo roads in Illinois or something like that, where do I go to get a verification that I'm a veteran-owned business, or what does like the process look like for that?
Well,
Where do you come in?
Okay. Where I come in is we are the national certifying body. We are the veterans, what the national minorities are the minorities, what we bank are the women.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's very simple. You'll simply go to my website, nvbdc.org. You'll click on the tab that says certification, and everything's there.
Yeah.
Very simple. We tell you what you are to be, what the criteria is. We have a checklist.
Sure.
We tell you download and print that checklist, get your documents together.
Sure.
Once you're ready, then click the application, pay your fee, and then go ahead and do the process.
How much is that fee?
The fee is a scale. If you're under $1 million, it's only $500.
Okay.
If you're over 100 million, it's $5,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, here's the thing. We lose money at every $500 veteran business we certify. But again, thanks to the corporations who said, well, okay, because I kept saying to them, if I keep jacking this price up, I can't, the guys say, Art can't afford it.
Can't afford it. Yeah.
Are you okay that you're actually helping to subsidize the veterans with your annual fee to us?
Yeah.
And they said, yeah, thankfully, because otherwise I couldn't do it. Okay. I love my CPA and my treasurer, but he goes, you're not very good at this, are you? You know? Like, well, what do you want me to do here? Here's my point. We certify all sizes of veteran businesses. We do not punish you for being new. Okay? So if you're a startup, yeah, it's still going to cost you $500. Okay? But if you don't have $500 to be certified, you're probably not ready to be certified. I mean, it's just that simple. But the fact of the matter is that our policies doesn't preclude you from becoming certified. Now, to go to your issue, I think it's where you were really heading. There's probably now 20, 25 states that have some form of a certification or verification within that state. Unfortunately, there's one that I know of that meets the corporate standards that I'm talking about and that we were taught. It's just, they don't do it. Okay? Because it takes too much time, too much energy, effort, and all the things that actually takes. There's a lot of work to do this.
Yeah.
Okay? But if you only intend to do business with your state or your local, I know Cook County, I know Chicago, I know Illinois, all have their own various forms of some kind of verification for veterans.
IVBP.
Ariel she knows all the acronyms.
I'm telling you, that's great.
Business program.
But the problem is again, depending on how many people are tuned in today and what country, or not country, what state they're in, they don't have an Illinois. Well, a country as well.
Yeah.
That's another stuff we don't have time to get into. But well, you can bring me back and I'll tell you a whole another story about being international. Anyways, the point is this. What I tell every one of our veterans is you first need to identify who your customer is or who you want it to be. Again, because of my personal background, because of my company and running my company and doing federal contracting, I tell anybody who really is interested, I didn't really give the VA very much credit for my success. I gave the GSA credit for my success. But you got to be in business for 2 years. You got to pass all these tests. You got to do all. Getting your GSA contract is not easy. Okay? But I have it. And I got very good at doing it. That's why I survived.
That's another show.
Another show.
Yeah, seriously.
The fact that I had my VA, did it hurt me? No. Did it help me? Probably. Was it the main reason? Absolutely not. Okay, so identify who your customer is or who you want your customer to be, and I can tell you where you should go as far as verification and certification. But right now, you had mentioned the roundtable. There's a group called the $1 Billion Roundtable. That is currently 27 or 28 corporations that have spent $1 billion per year with women and minorities. August 17th, 2017, they added the National Veteran Business Development Council and veterans to that spend.
Yeah.
Okay? So what happened? If you look at that inclusion now of veterans, in that group alone, the true impact, the true impact of this. Again, kind of going back to supplier diversity, going back to corporations. I have the major corporation sitting here. Their major supplier is called Tier 1. Another level of suppliers are called Tier 2. Some of them have Tier 3.
Is that pathway to prime?
I'm sorry?
That's their pathway to prime? kind of
Yes,
thing?
pathway to prime, that's a great word. I like that. Pathway, okay, note to Keith, pathway to prime.
So in best interest, we kind of have to wrap it up. So do you have a hack that you want to tell them about so that they know how to reach out, ask any questions that they have, or anything relevant to their small business journey that you found to be impactful for your own?
Yeah, there's two things. One, the phone number is 888-CERTIFIED. Call us.
What a number.
888 certified, okay?
Got a jingle.
Well, I have, look, let me be honest about this. I have very highly trained, very specialized people who are working on our behalf, who understand this process, and they're the people who would answer that phone. Second to that is simply support@nvbdc.org. That is also the same support staff. We have a full-blown committee that does nothing other than certification. That committee and our staff are set up to do one thing, is to help our veterans through the certification process. You know, our job is to help you get certified.
Yeah.
If you don't meet the qualifications, we're going to tell you, we're going to stop it right immediately.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, I'd love to help you, but you don't qualify for whatever reason. Okay, so those two things are the quickest and fastest way to get a hold of us.
Okay.
Okay, trying to get a hold of me is getting harder, only because thankfully,
$5 billion roundtable.
We got them on speed
I'm
dial.
running, so.
So, well, your hack?
You know, no hack today. I think just go outside, talk to people. Actually, here's my hack. In 2 weeks, we are going to do a breakdown from M Hub, which is a manufacturing. You know, I thought about this. It's a manufacturing incubator here in Chicago for people who want to create prototypes and stuff. It's really, really cool. I was over there on Monday talking with their founder about like toy manufacturing and just physical product manufacturing and stuff. And he gave me some really, really, really easy, logical insights that it's weird. I'd never put my mind around this before, but he said if you're ever going to go start a physical product, online retail is, you know, it's Amazon. 49% of all online retail is through Amazon. He said, go on Amazon and find all of the, whatever you're thinking about building, I'm sure somebody else has already built it. Go find that product on Amazon and just read the comments. And the people, or the reviews rather, and the people in the reviews will tell you exactly what they're looking for in that product. And if you can find something that moves a ton of volume, so something that sells, 15,000 things on it, but also gets really bad reviews, that's when you know you found a really good product. So that's my advice.
The old knockoff routine.
I don't know why I've never conceptualized that before, but exactly. Go read people's reviews, because it's customer feedback. I mean, 15 years ago, people used to spend a lot of time doing product testing with children for toys, for example, is what we were talking about. He said we don't need to do that anymore. We have all the data. We know exactly what's going to sell and what's not going to sell. And if you ever have any doubts, just go look in the comments on or the reviews on Alibaba and Amazon, and the customers will tell you exactly what they want. But do it quickly, because there's 7 billion people on this planet that are all have more or less have access to the same thing. So.
Well, next time we get together, I'll tell you some of the other advantages of being certified as a veteran-owned business. You just opened the door here. You have no idea what you've just done.
Stay here on.
Well, you named a name that I'm not only working with, but all of their competitors, and we all have the same idea.
Yeah.
And we're still working on it, so I'll leave it till next.
Well, we got to have you back in a couple of weeks, I guess, and figure out.
You should come to Detroit. Bring your crew.
We'll be in Detroit August 22nd.
I will be at the $1 Billion Roundtable in Rhode Island,
All
but
right.
hang on for a day. I'll be back on the 23rd.
The 23rd.
So here's my hack for those of you out there who probably want to dive a little bit deeper. It's the small business program. That's where those set-asides come from, some of the things that Keith were mentioning. The hack is DAU.mil. That's the Defense Acquisition University. You want to go to where it says Learn for Free. Actually, we'll post it on Facebook. And there's the free small business program walkthrough, and it'll explain all of this, how there is the 5% for women, the 3% for veterans, and then kind of like opens the door. So you're not just walking out there with like little foundation for where you're trying to go.
Well, if I may, and again, I know the time wrap up, there's a group called VBOX,
Yeah.
Yeah.
the Veteran Business Outreach Center, okay? They,
from there.
well, good. I was trying to be subtle, but the VBOX are generally people who work for the federal government who can help you get your business up, running, plug you into a whole array of free services, okay? SCORE, VBOX, all of PTAX, all of these
Great acronyms.
organizations that are all there to help the veterans.
We'll talk about that next
You're not
time.
alone, okay, is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah.
If you're a veteran and you want to start a business, there is a tremendous amount of resources, and once you get your business up and running, then come talk to me.
You heard it here.
Sweet.
There it is.
Keith, thank you so much for joining us. I
Appreciate you
really
having me
appreciate
on.
it.
Thank
Again,
you so
it's
much.
good seeing you
Ariel,
again.
thank you for being here to translate. It's really great. All right, thank you everybody for joining us on this Wednesday morning. Hope everybody has a great day. We'll be back next Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Central. Have a good day.
Okay, good.
And that's a wrap.
All right, man, thanks.
Great.